Hey, Shad here with Speed Addicts, the fastest growing gear site on the web. And today we're going to uncrate the Legend Suspension REVO Arc. What's up, Speed Addicts fam? We got some high-end goodies for you today, but before we jump into these piggyback shocks, do us a favor, subscribe to the Speed Addicts channel. Stay up to date, get educated on all the latest parts and gear in the two-wheel world. Subscribe, don't miss out. Also, if you'd like to support us here at speedaddicts.com, you could do so by simply shopping with us. There's going to be a link in the description below. They'll get you over to the complete selection of beautiful Legend suspension, coilover shocks, monotube kits. They've got front and rear suspension for Harley Davidsons. While you're over at Speed Addicts, get a new helmet, set of gloves, whatever you need for two wheels. We've got it at speedaddicts.com. Okay, so Legend suspension. If you are not familiar with these guys and you own a Harley Davidson, you're doing something wrong, because they make some of the best shocks in the business. Not only the rear shocks, rear suspension, but also front end monotube cartridges, okay? If you're gonna do one, you should probably do both. But today, we are talking about rear suspension setups, and more specifically, we are talking about Legend's highest end setups, which are Piggyback or remote reservoir. These are essentially the same thing. It just depends where you want that extra reservoir. Do you want it remote mounted so you can more easily adjust the compression, or depending on the bike, is just a simple piggyback setup where it's attached to the shock itself instead of by a line? Is this acceptable for you? So it just depends where you want it. Otherwise, you won't notice the difference between these two when they're installed on the machine. Now let's back up and talk about Legend a little bit more. So these guys only make Harley suspension. They don't mess around with anything else. The company was founded in the late 90s. They were the first guys who were doing air ride for Softails. So they know what they're doing. And they have, basically, when it comes to coilover shocks, non-air suspension, they really have kind of two categories. They have their REVO coilover shock, and then they have the REVO Arc, which has the remote reservoir, either in the piggyback or the remote style, okay? Now, who should be buying what? Most riders will really enjoy the standard REVO or REVO A. Those are pretty much the same thing. It just one of them has rebound adjustment, okay? Most people, that standard coilover is sufficient. But if you're really pushing your machine and you want the highest performance shock available from Legend, or you just like having the best because that's fun to do and you don't mind spending the extra money, then step up to the Arc, okay? The Arc is going to give you the remote reservoir. In case you don't understand why that's better, I mean, it looks cool, right? We like the piggyback thing hanging off our shocks, but really what this is about is getting more fluid. So when you have the remote reservoir, you are moving a piston over here along with more fluid capacity, and suspension is all about turning motion into heat and dissipating it off of the shock, and the remote reservoir gives you more fluid, more surface area, and thus you can dissipate heat. Heat is the enemy. Heat causes cavitation, and that basically keeps your shock from doing its job, okay? So remote reservoir, high performance, more fluid, more heat dissipation, and usually the manufacturer, if they're gonna make a remote reservoir shock, is going to give you more adjustability because they have a feeling that you're gonna keep things spicy here. So as opposed to the standard REVO shock, which doesn't have rebound or compression, the REVO A does. It has rebound down at the bottom. This is the only shock from Legend where you're going to get both that compression adjustment, okay, and this is hand adjustable on the top with multiple settings, you're also going to get the rebound adjustment down here. Now, you don't necessarily need to be a suspension expert to set these settings. I say, if you're not, tracking your Harley, then usually most people are going to adjust these to feel. The compression is going to make it firmer or softer, and the rebound is going to dictate how fast the shock reacts to bumps in the road. And on the bottom of the remote reservoir, you are going to see a service valve for nitrogen, so you can service these. All right, so let's talk about the price tag on these shocks. So the Piggyback is going to run $12.95, which is about $300 more than the REVO A. The REVO A is the non-coiler version of this. which is going to run right around $1,000. So it's a $300 upgrade to jump into the Piggyback. And the remote reservoir is another $100 over that. Okay, and this is the remote reservoir right here. Again, same performance, but if you got a bagger and you want to get this, mount the remote reservoir up top or between the fender and the bags, you can do so with the kit that they're going to give you, and you can adjust that compression a lot easier, okay? Hope that makes sense. Now, these are, of course, sold in pairs, and they're going to carry a lifetime warranty. The shock itself is anodized aluminum. It is sturdy stuff, and it's available in 2 different lengths. You're going to see these in either 13 or 14 inches. Now, they're not making 12s in these Piggyback shocks, so if you're concerned about touching the ground, you're shorter, okay, if you're worried about the ride height or you want to get the bike lower, then you should just go with the standard REVOs, because these Piggybacks are going to bring you up a touch. The Legend Suspension 13s can be set in terms of preload to get them close to that stock ride height, but it might be just a little bit more, so keep that in mind. And the 14 is going to bring the bike up a bit, which will give you more clearance. So if you're really pushing the limits in terms of performance, getting more ground clearance for your exhaust and foot pegs, going with the 14 inch is the way to go. And that, again, will bring the seat up. So keep that in mind. In terms of the spring rates, you're going to see standard and heavy duty. Heavy duty is for loads of 500 pounds or more. That means either you are riding with a passenger and you guys are both pushing that limit of 500 pounds, or passenger and or luggage. Now, if you're kind of borderline or just below, don't go with those heavy duty springs. Most people won't enjoy that ride, especially if they're passengers off the bike. It's going to be quite firm. If you're not sure, call Speed Addicts, talk to Rider Support. We'll walk you through that spring rate decision. Shock itself has deflective disc valve damping. It is the internals here, and the whole shock itself is meant to last. So that's why they're brave enough to put that lifetime warranty on it. These are expensive shocks, but they're going to protect your investment with that full lifetime warranty. Legend is in Sturgis, South Dakota. That's where all this gear is made. So this is made in America by an American company in the Mecca for Harley-Davidson. We have a spherical bearing eye here instead of a rubber bushing. And again, that is for longevity. It's going to keep the shock from binding, okay? It's going to allow some movement here and just go a lot further than a rubber bushing that's eventually going to wear out. Also, if you ever have a problem bottoming, it's going to be really hard to do because they have a really stout and big bumper, bigger than most of their competitors when it comes to the rubber bumper down here. So even if you push this thing to the limit in terms of bottoming, you shouldn't feel anything too harsh. It's available in black, gold, and silver. And what I've noticed actually is that the Piggyback has the label on it. I imagine you could take these off. I forgot to ask the guys at Legend and just go with like a plain black, but this is how it comes from the factory. And then the remote reservoir, does not have that label on it, okay? That about does it. Go over, talk to Speed Addicts Rider Support team if you have questions or you're not sure exactly what combination of spring rate and length is perfect for your riding situation. They're available over the phone, email, or live chat. That's all I got for you today. We'll see you next time to find out what's in the crate.